You're listening to Simon Scriver's amazingly ultimate fundraising superstar podcast, talking all things fundraising, charities, nonprofits, and more. Here's your host, as always, Simon Scriver.
We are live. This is the first attempt at a live podcast recording. And today what I wanted to talk about was a tweet that I put out a few weeks ago. And it was a pretty simple question. All I did was ask, what is your unpopular fundraising opinion? And I got a whole bunch of responses, some which, I totally agree with, and some which I totally don't agree with. But definitely some strong opinions in there. And I thought it'd be good to try one of these live recordings and see if we could get some people to maybe challenge those opinions, offer some reinforcement to those opinions, and see what they think. And along the way, obviously, I can't help but offer some of my own opinions on this. So if you want to take part, you can just sit there and you can listen and you can watch my beautiful face. If you want to dial in, then you are very welcome to dial in. I'm going to share this link again. And essentially what this link does is it brings you into a Google Hangout where you will be connected with me with this recording. And then you are more than welcome to, I'll bring you in and you can actually talk and offer your own opinion and get involved. Think of it as like a call-in show on radio, if you remember radio. This is like a modern day version of that. So straight away I can see I have someone here with me. So I'm going to bring him in and say hello if he is with me. John Lepp.
Simon Scriver. Oh my gosh. Am I the first caller in?
Yeah, you are. I'm surprised you got through with all these callers.
I was on hold and I was like, oh God, if I'm the 10th person through, I'll be so happy. So this is amazing.
Nice to see you, John. Also on the line, we've got the wonderful Nikki Bell, who I'm going to bring in here as well and say hello. Hello, Nikki.
Hello.
Wow, awesome. Nikki got through too. Hey, Nikki.
Hi, John. How you doing?
So straight away, what I want to do is I want to dive straight into some of these opinions and get some counter opinions or get some thoughts from experts like John and Nikki who have joined us. And if anyone else wants to join us and pipe up, then you're more than welcome to pipe up. One of the ones that jumped out at me, or one of the themes that jumped out at me in these unpopular opinions, was a few people talking about passion. And you two are very passionate people, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Because a couple of people said, let me just see if I can find them. A couple of people said that basically passion is irrelevant. So a gentleman called Will Brooks was saying, my passion for the cause is irrelevant as a fundraiser. And another person said, if I can find his name, that passion is overrated. And essentially what they're saying there is it doesn't matter if you're passionate about the cause you're raising money for. That's not one of the skills that comes in. That's not going to have an impact on how much you raise. And then someone was pretty vocal on the opposite side of that. Kelly Anderson said that if I don't believe in a cause, how am I going to build a connection and engage with the donor? It's scary to see fundraisers who don't think they need to care about their cause. And so, Nikki, maybe I'll put it over to you first. Do you need to care about what you're raising money for?
Me personally?
Well,
can you hear me, first of all?
I mean, a fundraiser in general, but since you're an expert fundraiser, do you need to care?
I would not necessarily have to feel passionate about it, but I would have to have some connection to it, because I feel like if I was going to go out and try and inspire people to give to that organization and feel passionate about it, my passion has to be authentic. I feel like if you're faking it, people pick up on that straight away. However, this is a very on the fence answer, I'm aware.
What's new there?
But like for other people who were just genuinely brilliant extrovert storytellers, then perhaps no. But overall, yeah, I would say you would have to have some passion for the cause.
So you couldn't, if you were to go out for something that you really didn't believe in, say some sort of right-wing cause or something that went against your beliefs, you don't think your fundraising principles would still apply? You don't think you could still push that out?
I mean, morally, I just wouldn't do it.
No,
I would just choose not to. So I guess I wouldn't come up against that. So, I mean, obviously I work in consultancy now. So the organizations that I might fundraise for, I might not necessarily have like a direct connection with. So in those cases, what I would do is find out as much as I could about the organization and meet with beneficiaries so that I could quickly get that on board and understand their why and believe. But then if there was another organization that was like eat all the animals or something like that, then I would not do it.
Because you're a vegan now.
I'm not a vegan now. No, I've been inspired to eat less meat. So I'm just eating less meat.
Well, good on you. I can see a comment from Ryan Stillwater, who's tuned into us on YouTube, and he says passion is needed one way or another for the function of your role or the cause.
I'm suspect of people who aren't passionate about their work, and certainly as a consultant, as someone who works with charities, one of the primary decisions I make in terms of whether I'm going to work with someone or not is, do they care about their work? Do they care about their donors? Do they care about their cause and what they're fighting for? And that's true of anywhere in life. Like when I go to the market, I talk to the bread guy because he's a big nerd for bread. He's got passion for bread, and he cares so much about his product and who's eating it and what they think about it. So I like to surround myself with people with passion. I'm suspect of people who don't have passion for their craft, whatever it might be, whether it's fundraising or something else, and pretty much avoid those sorts of people in my life, because I don't. What are we doing here if you don't really care, or if you're not passionate about your work?
So do you think if a fundraiser is listening to this and they aren't feeling that passion for their job, I mean, they still have to pay their bills. They still need a full-time job. Do you think what should they be doing? They should be moving on to another cause until they find something that they're really passionate about?
Well, yes, my quick answer is absolutely. I think we have lots of people working in a sector who don't actually care about their work or their donors, or they're just trying to pay their bills at home. And I get that. I'm not going to disparage them for that, but yes, it does make the work that we're trying to do with people very difficult. When you're actually trying to move the emotional needle forward and get people caring about your cause in a way they've never cared before. If you're in charge of making sure they feel cared for and loved, and you have none of it in your own heart or life, how can we possibly move that forward? It's impossible.
I mean, I think just playing devil's advocate, I can see what people are saying. If you bring it back to the bread example, you can still buy bread. You can still, have bread which is going to do the job and is going to create that sandwich for you.
That's horrible.
But yeah, I mean, you're the kind of guy who shops at these artisan places, with a much more expensive bread. And yes, it's better, but not all of us can afford this fancy bread.
Your analogy is horrible, Simon. What does this have to do with our sector?
I mean, you brought up the bread. But just that, I think like the same principles in fundraising, it still works. Fundraising still works, even if you hate it and you don't believe in it. I mean, I'll give you a good example. During the Repeal the 8th campaign in Ireland, there was a big campaign, and it was like the pro-life choice and the pro-life and pro-choice about whether abortion should be legalized. And one of the pro-life causes asked me if I would give them fundraising advice. And I knew, and I said no. I knew my fundraising advice, it would still help them because the principles of fundraising still apply. It would still work. But just because I'm not passionate about it, that maybe the fundraising wouldn't be as good, but it still functions. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, John, that who wants to live in a world where we merely function?
Is that the best we can do? I mean, that's what we pretty much do anyways, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like status quo is that's why things are the way they are. I think in not only our sector, but fucking everywhere. Oh, sorry, everywhere.
It's okay.
Because people are just going for, just a little bit better than before. And that's where we find ourselves.
We're going to see if we can get Ryan again, but I've just got a comment here from Stansbury Consulting over on Twitter. And she says, donors can spot fake passion and authenticity from a mile away. Same with consultants like me. Believe in the cause or find another job. That's pretty fun. Ryan, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Ryan. How are you?
Hey, guys. I was folding laundry. Sorry about that.
Where are you coming to us from?
Central Oregon.
Oh, lovely. And you've said passion is needed one way or another for the function of your role or the cause. Do you want to elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah. My last role as a fundraiser was in California. and a mentor of mine could tell I was starting to grow dissatisfied, and asked me if I was motivated by the cause or the function of my job. So I realized it was the cause, and I shortly thereafter left and moved to Oregon for a different organization. So I think it's real important. He knew he was function, but he could tell I was cause motivated.
And do you feel like you've become better at your job?
Yeah, I think it's real hard to look someone in the eye and tell a story that you don't really believe in, whether you're asking for money or just trying to make them care, you know? So if they don't believe you, you're not going to do very well, in my opinion.
And you're happier now?
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's beautiful. The organization I work for is pretty solid. So yeah.
Good. Lovely. Okay, I want to come down on these unpopular opinions. Did you have an unpopular opinion, Ryan? Were you one of the people who replied to me?
No.
Okay, that's all right. So just looking down here, one of the other unpopular opinions that jumped out at me was from Stephen Screen, who's an amazing fundraiser in the States. And he said, photos of need don't take away anyone's dignity. And this is kind of a theme that comes up quite a lot in our sector, is these images that show need, that show our beneficiaries, and you know, this idea that the sad child photo raises more money than the happy child photo. A lot of people think this is patronizing to our beneficiaries and patronizing to the work we do, and yet very often as fundraisers we know imagery like this raises more money. And so I suppose the question there, I mean, what Stephen is saying is we should be using the images of need because it raises more money. But a lot of people would disagree with that. And maybe I'll just throw it over to John if he's there. John, do you have I mean, you write a lot of direct mail. You're a designer. You're an artist. You use a lot of this imagery in your communications, or do you? What imagery works for you in fundraising?
Yeah, well, I mean, what do some people call it? That poverty porn idea, you know, that you're trying to I always think of it as emotional manipulation. I mean, we are marketers. Part of our job is to manipulate people into doing something maybe they weren't thinking about a moment before. Do I use that kind of image? No, I think I'm always asking myself, if I'm doing a video for an organization that helps women escape violence, for example, or a gratitude report, I'm very thoughtful about the images that I use. So again, I don't want to feel like, I don't want donor look at this thinking that they've been manipulated into giving or caring. So I'm always cautious about the sort of images that I use, and respectful again of who's in the image or what the image is displaying, as well as who may be looking at the image. Like we do lots of work with animal organizations, and some of the organizations are very quick to show animals in various states of distress. Or worse, and we've even tested it that, you know, we've found that you don't actually need to show really like upsetting images of animals. The donors will not give any less. So we actually tested it as an idea to see if we actually need to show those images to get donors to give, and the answer is not. For an organization like the one we were working for in RSPCA, didn't have to show those images. But we did also test it against an insert that said inside this insert is images that may upset you. You know, go ahead and have a look if you want. But we found the difference. There was no difference for them in that situation. So I think you have to always ask yourself, you know, is this appropriate for the audience? Do I need to show them? Is just telling them worse than showing them. I think there's a fine line there that may be different for other organizations. But my job is to make sure I'm giving a donor, I'm getting them to give as much as they possibly can, and I'll do everything I can to convince them that I need them to do this, and that sometimes means showing images that may be upsetting to them. So,
and so you, I mean, you test that, but there's other tests that maybe you've seen where the images of need are actually raising more money. Or say you ran a test like that and you found these images raise more money. Would you make a choice to do that because your goal is to raise as much as possible, or is there a line that you draw?
I think as emotional humans, we still have to ask ourselves, you know, how far do I have to go here? You know, and yes, you may find your organization of a relatively dying child on the front of your envelope. is going to raise you more money. And that's the question you have to ask yourself as an organization, as an individual. Do I need to, is it appropriate in this situation? We all know that shot of the child lying on the beach, and how much impact that image had in our sector, you know, and in certain circumstances, a very appropriate image to show. It moved people to give a lot of money to an organization to make sure that that picture never ever happened again. That was a very appropriate image to use in that scenario. But again, I think
it's a real image.
So yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not like you're not making it up. It's a real image.
Exactly. And there are other images that have been used historically through the years that photographers have admitted they've manipulated. There's a very famous image of from years ago, back in the 80s, of a child in Africa who's squat on the ground, and there's a vulture probably about 5 feet away from him. Most people can remember that image stuff. Photographer admitted it was manipulated. He manipulated that image, set it up for the shot because he knew it was going to be a more powerful shot.
This is Kevin Carter, the photographer. Did he admit that? I'm not sure he did.
I remember reading. What, am I wrong? Could be wrong. I'm pretty sure because it stood on my brain. It's still like, wow, like, you know, here's an image that's pretty popular. Now I need to feel like I should fact check myself. I mean,
it's an amazing photo because I did some. I looked into that before because he ended up. He actually killed himself because of the backlash he got over that photo, because people said he was manipulative and because it was exploiting this kid in there, and so yeah, I mean, maybe that's one to look at. But he was torn with the same idea we as fundraisers is, do you stop to take the photo and take the time to put it out there? And the photo like that, it triggered a lot of people to take action. But at the same time, you know, the argument is there. Is it exploiting? You know, is it exploiting because he should have put the camera down? He should have helped. He shouldn't have, you know, jeopardized that person's dignity by sharing that photo. It's a tough one. There's 2 people on the phone call here, or 3 people. I think Nikki's still eating. Rebecca Juniper has just joined us, and if Rebecca has an opinions on these kind of images, I'd love to hear it. Or if Ryan wants to chime in and offer any opinions, I would love to hear that. Ryan, are you there?
Yeah. I think John nailed it when he talked about depending on the scenario of where you're putting images like that. I mean, if you, during the Houston flood, last year, big flood in Houston, Texas, if it was images of people like smiling like they're boating in the flood, wasn't going to raise as much as people like scrambling to save their own life, you know, and get into boats. On the other hand, in what I do with domestic violence, we've started, the culture has shifted to go from using the term victims to survivors, even if the individual is still in the abusive relationship, because they're surviving the relationship. So it's like a perspective change, and you know, in that verbiage, and then the images as well, going from like the black.
Oh, sorry, we just lost you there, Brent.
Was I muted that whole time?
No, it was just the last sentence there. Sorry. So if for some reason it just clicked off.
Oh, I felt really bad. Everyone was just staring at me with my mouth moving.
No, we heard you just except for the last few words.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying? Carry on.
Where was I?
About the Houston floods and about in terms of showing those happy photos versus, and then you'd moved on to talking about survivors who are still in domestic abuse.
Right. So using the term survivors instead of victims, using images of women who are empowered versus with black eyes. So it's part of our culture that's kind of shifted in how we market what we do and how we tell our stories, that how we display our clients matters to, you know, other clients to see someone empowered, not someone, you know, completely beat down. So yeah, I think depending on what you do, depending on the message you're trying to get across, both can be applicable.
I think that like there's a really interesting conversation in this, which often we don't touch on, is we think about what the public like to or don't like to see and what they respond to. We think about what we like to see or what we don't like to see. But a lot of the time we don't ask what the beneficiary thinks, or, you know, what the survivor in this case thinks, what the person in need thinks. And I remember there was a really amazing report by Save the Children called, I believe, The People in the Pictures. And if anyone's listening to this that has a bit more knowledge on this and wants to chime up, then please come on in. But essentially, they did a bit of research into these so-called poverty porn pictures to ask the people in the pictures, well, what do you think of them? And overall, the general vibe back was that they didn't have a problem with the photos of need, as long as they were done, like John said, respectfully, and as long as the people who were in the pictures knew what they were going to be used for, which kind of echoes what both these gentlemen, Ryan and John, are saying, that if we can kind of involve them in the process, a lot of the time they're going to be behind it, as long as they understand it, and we're not. I think maybe that's when it crosses away from being exploitative and moves towards being something about, you know, getting a genuine message, getting genuine imagery out there. Any final thoughts on this one, John, before I move on to another unpopular opinion?
No, go ahead. You covered it.
Okay, thanks. So another one, let's see what else we've got in these unpopular fundraising opinions. Again, you can find all of these on Twitter. There are a few on LinkedIn as well. But this was an interesting one, I thought, from Robin Padany. And I'm sorry if I've pronounced your name wrong. But he was essentially complaining about Giving Tuesday coming after Cyber Monday and Black Friday, because it sends the message that charitable giving should come after selfish consumer indulgence. Buy yourself a giant TV, and if you have any leftovers, maybe give some scraps to ending hunger. And I wonder, have we missed the trick there? When we set up Giving Tuesday, it became an afterthought, or it was situated as an afterthought where, like he says, we spend all our money on consumerism, spend all our money on these hot deals online and offline, and then we take whatever's left over and charity is an afterthought. And does that kind of back up what we've been doing this whole time, which is, you know, charity is always an afterthought. It's not kind of the main driver. And is that maybe why we're being left behind? I wonder if Nikki Bell is still eating a sandwich.
I'm finished.
Oh, no, she's finished, because it looks like you're still eating. Nikki, do you, I mean, I've never really heard your opinion on Giving Tuesday, but whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, I wonder what your thoughts are on where charities sits after consumerism. So do we prioritize Black Friday? Do we prioritize buying a TV? And then we approach our donors looking for the scraps that are left over. What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's the looking for the scraps, isn't it? Isn't it playing on people's guilt? I think that was like, I don't think it was the whole point of it, but once people have had that huge consumerism weekend, and then it gets to the Tuesday, and maybe they are kind of feeling that, oh, I spent that money on something perhaps that I didn't need, and then they see all these messages saying that they can do something good with their money, and then they can get involved with the charity organization that way. I think it is more than that, than like the scraps on it. I think it is a great way perhaps to engage with new audience, perhaps that they haven't had access to before. But in terms of a money giver, it's not well placed. Obviously, people have spent all of that money. I personally would use it as more of a way to engage new audiences, get the message out about the great stuff that your organization are doing, and then encourage it to have engagement and kickstart longer relationships, rather than it just being a day where you're just trying to get lots of money in, because you're going to get all the emails from like the hundreds of other charities that are doing it. A lot of people rush it out and there's no real thought given to it. It's like, give us money because it's Giving Tuesday, which is not a compelling message. I mean, it's relative. How long has it been here in UK, Ireland?
Well, UK, I mean, you've had it, what, maybe 10 years even? I'm not sure. I mean, we've only had it a couple years in Ireland, and it hasn't really taken off, although, I mean, people would argue it's growing each year.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe we're just taking time to get it right, but 10 years is a pretty long time.
Is it still finding its feet, maybe?
I mean, obviously, my social media feeds, my everything that I kind of look at online is quite charity related. So I see a lot of the messages, and I feel like on that day, it's just a lot of noise with not a lot of quality that I'm seeing. But the charities that stand out are the ones that perhaps use it to say thank you, or they do something different to engage with new people. But asking for money it's probably not the best placed campaign.
Do you think the guilt thing is one thing it has going for it? I mean, do you think people do respond by giving to that because they've just, splashed out on like a new hairdryer and a new TV and stuff like that? Do you think that works? That then if we come in and say, oh, by the way, while you're relishing in that, there's people dying, does that inspire people to give? I mean, you're not a big fan of guilt, are you?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you would never use guilt in your fundraising, I imagine. You're an award-winning fundraiser, and you don't get to that position by guilting people.
No, when I was eating, when you were talking about the imagery stuff, because I wanted to chime in and say that isn't something that I personally would do because of it's not my vibe. I wasn't involved in any of the earlier conversations with the Charity Tuesday, so I don't know what the conversations were around that and whether it was brought into it, but it will play a huge factor on why people give. But then they're not people then that you're going to have long-term fundraising relationships with, because that motivator isn't altruistic. It isn't because they want to make a difference. They just want to appease that feeling for themselves. I know that when I spent a lot of money, I immediately, well, not immediately, but on a few hours later, be like, oh, like I've spent a lot of money and feel bad about it. And then if I had a campaign that played on that feeling, then I might act on it, but then I probably wouldn't give to them again because I'm trying to avoid that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, guilt. Yeah, it does. Guilt isn't a long-term fundraising strategy, is it? Because people are more likely to just, I suppose, avoid you.
Yeah, yeah. Because, I mean, maybe like subconsciously you would associate that organization with that feeling of guilt that you felt at the time that you gave. Not to say that everyone feels guilty when spending a lot of money, but I think, yeah, that probably does come into it for a lot of people. And if it doesn't, then maybe asking them at a time when they've spent quite a bit of money or they're trying to avoid that messaging isn't the best time. I think charities sometimes jump on the back of a lot of existing noise without having that bravery to go out and just try something new for themselves. So yes, the campaign is well placed, but had we acted a little bit earlier and done something the month before or do something later and gone it alone, it might have had more traction. But I guess we'll not know.
Yeah. Jonathan Lepp, have you got any thoughts on where charity sits in this world? I mean, you're a gentleman like me who likes to complain about the state of the world. Is one of the problems that we've put the caring and the giving and the charitable side as second to everything else, second to buying Apple earbuds and whatever?
Well, I mean, remember, Giving Tuesday is it an American creation? I mean, you're talking about the land of consumerism, and Black Friday was around probably a long time before Giving Tuesday was. So it's not surprising that the land of consumerism also created a day of giving because they felt guilty about their excessive consumerism. Like, it's a natural American invention as far as I'm concerned. And also let's be honest, we know, even Simon, through some of the stuff that we're trying out there, at the end of the day, humans are gonna take care of themselves first. They're gonna buy that thing they really want and stuff like that, and the natural reaction is gonna be, well, maybe I should give a little bit. That's why at the booze store, you can give $5 to your local United Way after you buy $100 worth of wine, because you're buying all the stuff for yourself. It's a very natural reaction. Giving Tuesday seems like a very natural, created, anti-consumer sort of event. That was created by two charities, but again, to me it makes sense. So it's not surprising it comes after an excessive amount of self-indulgence and consumerism.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing that people like to treat ourselves. We all deserve a nice TV, a nice holiday. We're not trying to guilt people out of that stuff. I'm not even being facetious. You're looking at me like I'm taking a piss out of you, because you're drinking from a designer bottle while you have your Apple earbuds in. But I'm the same. I mean, we deserve. You want to look after yourself. You want to look after your family, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're not expecting people to be like completely selfless and sacrificing everything. It's just where your charitable side fits into the rest of it.
And it's a different audience.
Furniture in your house, John.
Can you hear that?
Yeah. What is that?
It's my cleaner upstairs. He's like literally right above me. Jesus, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's right. That's fine. Yeah. So let me move on from John's consumerism onto one of these other unpopular opinions. There's some really good stuff in here, or really kind of like honest stuff. And one of the things I loved about the responses on Twitter is people maybe kind of dropped their guard a little bit and actually felt they could complain. And we as fundraisers, we don't often feel we can complain. But this person, Rachel Groves, said donors might like to feel involved, but it's a pain in the ass servicing this desire. And I found that really like honest and true, because very often we are, we talk about donors and about looking after them, bringing them into the loop, bringing them in to give them tours, making ourselves available for them. I talk about giving your mobile phone number so they can contact you and feel special. But at the end of the day, that is a pain in the ass. And I might actually just go back to Nikki here, because Nikki's a bit of an expert on this stuff, because she's an award-winning fundraiser, one of the best community fundraisers in the world. Are you making a face at me, or are you just... Yeah, okay. But Nikki, you're a great fundraiser, and you're very good at bringing donors in and making them feel special. Is it a pain in the ass to do that? Is it a pain in the ass to be so generous?
It can be exhausting. Am I still muted?
No, I can hear you.
Yeah, it can be exhausting. It's not a pain in the ass. It's worth it, and it feels good. So I don't agree with that. I get that some people don't want to do it, or they can't be asked to do it. So that training that me and you did in Dublin, and it was all about fundraising relationships and the little delighters that you can do to make people feel appreciated and remembered. And someone put their hand up at the end and asked, well, what do you do if you like genuinely cannot be bothered to do any of this stuff? And it was at that point that I realized that, wow, yeah, there are going to be some fundraisers that do not have those kind of skills or need or patience to do all of this, because it is exhausting. Like, you have to actively listen, you have to remember key milestones, you have to think of special ways to delight people all of the time. Sometimes if you forget, then you berate yourself for it, which adds another level of pressure. Some people just don't want to do that stuff. They kind of, their work and their private life is separate. So for them, work is just very kind of just transactional, get the job done and get out. But I think if you're a fundraiser, it's necessary, because we know that strong relationships are key for fundraising success. And if you don't do it, then you don't raise as much money. The people won't stay with you as long as they would. And as a fundraiser, that's your key goal. So are you in the right job if you don't want to do this with people? Or are you in the right method of job? So you and I do the fundraising for introverts training as well, which is at Scottish IOF Conference and IFC Holland, if anyone's watching and coming. And we talk a lot about people in that training who might not necessarily not want to do it, but just haven't got that confidence or energy to do it, perhaps. And something that I talk about in there are the other types of fundraising that you can do where you don't necessarily have to do that bit, like direct mail. So there might be different areas for you, but no, it's not a pain in the arse. You just don't have the patience to see it through.
Well, I think, and actually I'd be curious to hear Ryan's thoughts if he's still with us, but I think to defend Rachel, what she's saying it's a pain in the ass, but she's not necessarily saying that she won't do it. And I think, my feeling is it is a pain in the ass. I mean, work is a pain in the ass. Life is a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes. That doesn't mean that we then don't do it. I mean, it can still be I love fundraising. It's a beautiful thing, and there's a lot of satisfaction from it. And we know these pains in the asses work. But it's still okay to moan about it sometimes and say, that this is that donors. I mean, God, it's you're almost afraid to say this out loud. But sometimes donors are really annoying, and sometimes donors are a pain in the ass. And as a consultant, I can probably say that a lot easier than someone who works in a non-profit. And so I might just ask Ryan that, because I can see he's there. Ryan, are donors a pain in the ass?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what helps me is just keeping some boundaries. I don't give out my cell phone number typically. Family first is an important motto that I feel like I had to do while my kids are young, you know, so that I don't make exceptions all for the dollar, you know. So I don't think I have a lot to share on this, but I just think even donors understand the family side, and that's also a point of connection, and they respect that about your availability. If you're unavailable, you're unavailable. If it's for a good reason, you know, they're forgiving.
Do you find you have to kind of go out your way to draw those lines? I mean, I think with most fundraisers, your boss, your board, your donors, they'll take as much as you give them, and you have to kind of draw that line. You've obviously, you know, made a shift in your career and where you work, and in terms of balancing your work and time balance, is it an effort for you? Do you struggle with it?
I think sometimes, yeah. Instead of just saying like, you know, family first, you know, my boundaries, it's more like, am I the best fit to go to that donor or that event or to speak at that place? And oftentimes, if I know I'm the best, then I'll make an exception, even if it's the weekend or an evening or something. But if there's someone that's more qualified, or it's like an all women's event or something, then it's a good opportunity to draw the line, even though that's my role, then I'm not the best person from the organization to go and represent. So
very good. Can I just say, it looks like your house is surrounded by forest. Is that looks really idyllic? Is that true?
We got a lot of trees. You should come visit.
That looks really lovely.
It's nice.
Okay, thanks for that, Ren. I'm gonna jump across to John as well, because John, we've talked a lot about this in the past. John, we've talked a lot about this in the past, about kind of, I suppose almost like mental health and work balance, and we take the piss out of each other for moaning a lot. We moan a lot about, I suppose, fundraising and our donors. Is moaning a good thing? I feel like you're a bit of an expert on moaning. Is it helpful?
Come on. I think it's useful. It's useful if you use it to propel you to do better things. I have another colleague friend of mine who I love very much as well, but all they ever do is moan about stuff, and they get destroyed by their frustrations. But they're not utilizing the frustration to do something new or better. And I'm like, so I think you and I do moan about things, but I also think that we use as an opportunity for how can we do this better then? Like, this bothers us, so what can we do with it to actually do something more productive or do it better? So
yeah, I know I give you a hard time about moaning, but I feel like you don't just bring problems to the table, you bring solutions or attempts at solutions as well, which is one of the things I love about you. But that there's always like an attempt to dig us out of it, or at least, try different things to do it. And so I think we need to allow fundraisers to moan about donors, to moan about fundraising, to moan about their boss. I think that's important to have that space. But we have to have, at least suggested solutions, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, Jen has said many a time, that we always need to make space to talk about the things that bother us, but also that we need help to fix these things, And so again, I'm always going to be open to working with others, because complaining or moaning or whatever we want to call it about things, I think is important, because our work is challenging. And again, like you said, we have the beautiful position of being consultants. It's very easy for us to say certain things or wash our hands of problems that some of our friends and colleagues need to deal with every single day. But I am still kind of a firm believer. We were with Shannon Doolittle not too long ago in Las Vegas, of all places, and someone asked her about the idea of thanking donors and stuff, and she flippantly remarked, and I don't think it was overly flippant, I think she really means it, that if you don't have the time to say thank you to your donors, if you don't have time to give to your donors, then you don't really deserve them. Like, these people are going out of their way to do something remarkable for our organizations and the beneficiaries of our organizations. If you can't find the time, whether we like them or not, we need to check our own personal shit at the door. Do you know what I mean? Like we've got a job to do. And that's come back to the original thing about passion. If you don't have passion for your work and for your donors, for your beneficiaries, and there are too many people in our sector that's exactly the case. They just want to moan and just do their job. There's lots of sectors in this world that will let you do your job and check in at 9 and check out at 5. But I wish they weren't here with us in our sector. I do honestly believe that.
Do you struggle to find that work-life balance? Like, do you struggle to switch off? You're big on social media. You obviously choose your own hours because you're self-employed. But do you struggle to, when you go on holiday, when you at the weekend, are you still fundraising? Are you still a fundraiser, or like?
Yeah, because I love my job. You know, I say Jen and I talk about this all the time at Agents of Good HQ. You know, I love what I do, and so me spending time in this space to work on myself or my business or my clients or the problems that I want to help solve is stuff I love doing. And I don't see it as it is work. And some days, yeah, you need to create space where you can unplug from that and check out from that. And I can do that as an entrepreneur, but I don't find it onerous. I don't find it, I mean, I do and I don't, but I love doing it and I love what I do. So I don't see it as, oh, I got to fucking do this thing now. Do you know what I mean? Like there's not much separation. If you meet me out on my daughter's soccer pitch, or you meet me at a conference in Las Vegas, I'm exactly the same person. I care about things, and I'm passionate for what I do. I don't sort of turn things on and off.
That's nice. I'm going to start to wrap it up, John. But
yeah, nice.
Have you got an event coming up that that maybe you want to just tell the listeners about? You've got your Donor Love and Donuts coming up soon, do you?
Yeah, I'm not here to plug our stuff, and this, I like this idea though of what you're trying to do. No, I do. I'm gonna turn it back to you because I like this idea of giving people to talk about unpopular opinions. That was a very viral tweet you released into the world of asking people about their thoughts, and it's obvious
viral.
There's obviously lots of people we struggle and deal with a whole lot every single day, and I think we need space, and Twitter's a good space to share some of these frustrations that we have to deal with and we're faced with. That's a reality of our world, and I would just always ask people, you know, find as much passion for your work, and if it's not the current place where you're working, it's not the current cause you're doing work for, you know, what is it? How can you get closer to your passion? Because I want more people in our sector, no matter what you're doing, with passion. And if you don't feel it, then you got to check that with yourself. Like, what are you doing? If you're not doing what you're passionate about, that's in your whole life, not just our sector. If you're not doing what you're passionate about, then what is that? And can you get closer to it than you are right now? That's really important.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, John. Really lovely to see you and speak to you. And thanks for offering your unpopular and popular opinions. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, it's great having you here.
So I'm going to start to wrap this podcast up. I mean, obviously, this is a trial in terms of testing a live podcast recording. So this is going to be available on the usual podcast stream, which is available Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to this. You can also watch the video, which will be up on my YouTube channel. I'd love to do this again next month. You know, maybe do one of these live ones once a month or once every couple of months. But obviously, that depends on people getting involved. So if you have a voice, if you have an opinion, if there's something you want to talk about on the podcast, there's something you want me to address, then please do feel free to find me on Twitter @ToastFundraiser and send me across a tweet. Or if you want to email me, I'm simon@changefundraising.com. And if there's anything specific you want to talk about or get into, then please do. Hopefully as well, I have a bunch of seminars coming up in Scotland, in the UK, in England, London, I think Canada. I have stuff coming up. IFC in Holland I will be speaking at. I will be over in New Zealand presenting. So hopefully I'll be coming to a place near you. Again, if you follow me on at Toast Fundraiser on Twitter, you'll see the latest things. But I would love to chat about fundraising with anyone and everyone who's listening to this that likes to talk about fundraising. And please do come on to the next live podcast. See, it's not that scary, is it, coming on? I wasn't a dick to anyone, was I? So come on, dial in and offer your opinion. And who knows, it could be the beautiful start of a podcast career for you. So that's it. Thank you so much to everyone who got involved. John, Ryan, Nikki, Jen, who's in a different 7-minute time zone or something. Howard was there. Everyone else who checked in and listened. Thank you so much for making this actually happen a little bit. And hopefully we can do it again. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
You've been listening to Simon Scriver's Amazingly Ultimate Fundraising Superstar podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and head over to changefundraising.com to learn more or get in touch with Simon. Or don't, whatever, you're big enough to make your own decisions.
Hello, this is Morgan Freeman. For discounts on Simon's best-selling online fundraising courses, go to www.changefundraising.com/training and use coupon code podcast. Complete them in your own time, wherever you want. Get busy living or get busy buying.